Thanks for visiting the patient and weather today. I'm meteorologist Al Peterlin. I'd like to talk about the Weather Health Index for May 15th, 2026. We do keep additional graphics at tpatw.com. We also have a storefront on Amazon. Looking at the surface map for Friday, really high pressure dominating most of the country, but there's always something trying to make its way into the Pacific Northwest. But the most important issue is a low pressure center north of Lake Superior and its cold front, hanging down through Wisconsin, Iowa, back into Kansas, all the way down to the Texas and Oklahoma panhandle. Its attendant warm front is stretching from Des Moines all the way to Atlanta, and most of the activity will be headed right along that frontal system, and there is some instability moving back down into the southern plains, and again that will be right along the frontal passage area. Looking at our vitality index, a general measure where weather impacts could really trigger some kind of pain in the body, and we have a lot of activity going on here, both in the plains and the Mississippi Valley, and then we have a little bit of activity right along the Atlantic or eastern seaboard, and getting a little more significant right about Massachusetts and Connecticut and New England. Looking at pressure change, you'll see that the pressure differentials for Friday are not all that significant, although we have some falling pressure here across Wisconsin, Michigan Upper Peninsula down into Illinois. We have rising pressure, and that is just behind that first front, all along the eastern seaboard from coastal Florida through coastal South Carolina, Virginia, up into Maryland, and then swinging back to the west across eastern Pennsylvania, upstate New York, and really gathering in much of New England. Temperature changes, again, not all dramatic, but you'll see that we have some warming temperatures almost everywhere to the east, and it'll all be just ahead of that warm front that is trying to push its way on up into the Great Lakes and up into New England. Dew point temperatures will be more significant, with an increase in dew point temperatures here east of the front, up and down the Middle and Mississippi Valley, up almost to the Appalachians, and the vapor pressure map is showing very much the same thing, just a lot of moisture trying to stream into the eastern half of the country. I mentioned the instability, and just ahead of that front, a lot of instability across eastern Texas, eastern Oklahoma, all the way into eastern Kansas, and actually trying to bubble on up all the way to extreme southeastern South Dakota. Looking at the change in oxygen availability, you can see that we have that risk of migraine, Washington, Oregon, and Vancouver. We have a little bit of a risk of migraine here in eastern Montana and eastern North Dakota. Again, a risk of migraine along the Gulf Coast from Louisiana across the Florida Panhandle, and even picking up some here along the eastern seaboard of Florida, but getting more significant on the eastern seaboard of Georgia, South Carolina, the Carolinas, and then sweeping off all the way into Connecticut, Massachusetts, and up into New Hampshire and Vermont. Note that we have a rather extensive risk of asthma and arthritis, mostly with and along and ahead of that front, running all the way from Arkansas up through Missouri, Iowa, into Minnesota and Wisconsin, and then the entire Ohio and Tennessee valleys, and trying to swing its way on into the middle Atlantic states. But the most significant area of asthma arthritis risk here from northeastern Arkansas across into Missouri and back up into southern Iowa, and getting extensive again as we get into Wisconsin and northern Minnesota. Thanks for visiting the patient and the weather today. Your comments are appreciated. And if you hurt, tell us where you're